Why Mike Tyson was the last real gladiator. Close your eyes. It's 1988. The living room is dim, the TV static is humming, and your heart is hammering against your ribs. You aren't just watching a fight, you're waiting for a storm. Then, he appears. No glittering robe, no loud music, no socks, just a black towel around his neck and a stare that could melt granite. Mike Tyson didn't walk to the ring. He marched toward a crime scene. The heavyweights back then were giants, but Mike was a hurricane in black trunks. He didn't jab to score points, he jabbed to break your spirit. Why was he the last real gladiator? Because today, boxing is a business. In the 80s, with Tyson, it was an execution. We didn't watch for the scorecards. We watched because for 90 seconds, the world stood still. Brownsville, Brooklyn. A concrete graveyard where hope went to die. Imagine a shy, bullied kid with a high-pitched voice, hiding on rooftops with his pigeons. He was a nobody, a target. Then a neighborhood thug snaps a bird's neck right in front of him. In that moment, the kid died, and a monster clawed its way out. But a monster without a cage is just a tragedy waiting to happen. Enter Cus D'Amato, an old white-haired strategist with fire in his gut, and a gym that smelled like half-century-old sweat. Cus didn't just teach Mike how to throw a hook. He taught him how to haunt a man's dreams. Fear is like fire, Cus would whisper in that dim light. It can cook your food, or it can burn your house down. Under that flickering gym bulb, they forged a psychological weapon. The peekaboo wasn't a boxing style. It was a death sentence. Mike wasn't tall, he wasn't heavy, but he was explosive. He was a coil of muscle and trauma ready to snap. Cus gave him a purpose. He gave him a father. For the first time, Mike wasn't running from the world. The world was going to have to run from him. By 16, he was a man-child, destroying grown men in smoky basements. By 20, he was a wrecking ball. But behind the iron muscles, there was always that scared kid from Brownsville, fighting to keep the demons at bay. This wasn't just training, it was an exorcism. And the boxing world wasn't ready for the ghost they had just unleashed. Atlantic City. The world stopped spinning. Michael Spinks, the linear champ, the man who had never been floored. He looked into Mike's eyes in the center of the ring, and he saw his own funeral. It took 91 seconds. That's all. 91 seconds to turn a world-class warrior into a ghost. Tyson didn't box. He hunted. He didn't jab to score points. He jabbed to break your face. He slipped. He pivoted. He exploded like a landmine. Every hook sounded like a car crash. If you were 250 pounds, it didn't matter. If you were 6'5", it didn't matter. When Mike stepped inside your guard, the lights went out. He wasn't fighting for belts anymore. He was fighting for survival. Every knockout was a scream from the gutter. Every victory was a middle finger to everyone who ever doubted that scared kid from Brooklyn. He made the heavyweight division look like a crime scene, and we couldn't look away. The heavyweights back then were giants, but Mike was a hurricane in black trunks. No socks, no robe, no mercy. He was the baddest man on the planet, and for a brief moment in time, he was untouchable. He was a god in a pair of everlast gloves. We didn't just watch him, we felt him. In the 80s, Tyson wasn't just an athlete. He was an event, a primal force of nature that reminded us why we fell in love with this brutal sport in the first place. This was the peak of the gladiator, pure, violent, perfect. Every gladiator has a crack in his armor. For Mike, the crack was his heart. Cus D'Amato died, and the only man who could keep the monster in the cage was gone. The anchor was cut. Mike was drifting in a sea of sharks. The vultures moved in, the suits, the jewelry, the fake smiles, and the chaos of Don King. By the time he reached Tokyo in 1990, Mike wasn't a warrior anymore. He was a target. Buster Douglas was a 40-to-1 underdog, a man grieving his mother, a man with nothing to lose. Mike? Mike hadn't trained. He hadn't slept. He thought he could win on reputation alone. But boxing is a jealous god. If you don't give it your soul, it takes your pride. The world watched in a collective, suffocating silence. We saw the impossible. We saw the baddest man on the planet hit the canvas. Seeing Mike crawl on his knees, fumbling for his mouthpiece with trembling hands, it didn't just hurt to watch. It felt like watching our own childhood heroes crumble. It felt like a god bleeding in the dirt. Buster didn't just beat Mike, he broke the myth of the monster. The Gladiator was still there, but the fire was flickering. The fear in his opponent's eyes, it started to fade. The invincibility was dead. We realized that day that even the iron can rust. Mike spent the rest of his career trying to find that 1988 version of himself, but some things, once broken, can never be glued back together. The Tokyo night changed everything. Boxing was never that loud or that scary ever again. Look at the heavyweight division today. What do you see? You see giants who talk more than they fight. You see brands protecting their undefeated records like they're fragile glass. You see social media stars and calculated business moves. But Mike didn't have a marketing team. He had a reputation. He didn't care about the brand. He cared about the damage. We miss him because he was real. We miss him because he was the last one who truly terrified us. There was an honesty in his anger and a tragedy in his mistakes. When you sat in front of your TV in the 80s, you weren't watching an athlete. You were watching a man who wore his trauma like armor. He was the last of the Mohicans, the last of the gladiators. The kids today, they watch the highlights. They see the knockouts, but they don't know the feeling. They don't know the silence that fell over a room when the bell rang. They don't know the pit in your stomach when Mike stepped into the pocket. He was a once-in-a-century storm that blew through boxing and left everything changed. Even now, at nearly 60 years old, the world still stops when he speaks. We don't judge him like we judge other men. We forgive him because we saw him rise from the dirt, touch the stars, and burn up on the way back down. He's the baddest man on the planet, not because he never lost, but because he never stopped being Iron Mike. There will never be another. The cage is empty. The arena is quiet. The last real gladiator has left the ring. The lights have dimmed, and the echoes of those thunderous hooks are all that's left. We live in a different world now, one of polished images and safe bets. But for those of us who lived through the Tyson era, we know the truth. We saw the last of the real ones. We saw the fire before it was extinguished. Now, I want to hear from you. Where were you when Mike Tyson changed the world? Was it that night in 1988? Or was it the heartbreak in Tokyo? Drop your favorite Iron Mike memory in the comments. Let's bring that 80s gym energy back for a moment. If you respect the grit of the old school, hit that subscribe button. We aren't just talking about sports here. We're remembering legends. Until the next bell rings, stay sharp.